afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Jamie, and I have Liam on camera with me this afternoon. And once again, you have the pleasure of one presenter for the majority of the show. But if you keep your fingers crossed and are very well behaved on the back of the vehicle, maybe, just maybe, Mr. James Hendry might make a surprise appearance towards the end. But yes, we're still doing some backstage filming, I suppose you could put it, or just off-air filming for various projects. And thus, we are down to one vehicle. Luckily, Rusty has been behaving so far on our trip around quarantine fairly well. As I said, coming to you live, we are on Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves within the Sabi Sands, which puts us in the greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa, so the top northeastern corner of our beautiful country. And the sun is shining after 2 days worth of rain. Everything's looking beautiful and green. And of course, that brings exciting prospects for the afternoon in terms of what wonders we could see. Definitely a lovely looking sky. Now don't forget that not only are we live, but we're also interactive, which means that if you have questions or comments that you'd like to make, you can do that on hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. We do love to hear from you, and if you're a new viewer, let us know that you're a new viewer. Tell all your friends, tell your family, and let's see if we can continue to increase the size of our large safari vehicle around the world, around the globe. Now, my plan for this afternoon is, first of all, to find as many lovely animals as we can find, go and check some of the dams, see what the levels are looking like after all of the rain. I'm on my way down to Treehouse Dam now. And since the slate... I see you. There. Oh, no. Don't do that, squirrel. Hello. Why did you shout at me as I drove past? Were you shouting at another squirrel? I promise you he was making a noise. I'm not crazy. Is he staring at? I don't see anything. Sharp-eyed squirrels, alarm calling for snakes and for eagles, or alternatively for leopards or lions wandering past. I don't think our little trickster is too concerned, though. Sometimes they shout at each other as well, and unless you are the great Renius or other experienced trackers, telling the difference between the different calls can be a little bit tricky. And he's hiding behind the marula tree. Alright, well, don't see anything. I don't see a snake. I think he was... Oh, there he goes. Well, definitely not a snake if he's down on the ground. Bounce, bounce. Wish I had the same level of agility of a squirrel. So, Kerry, who is watching our show and a new viewer, she was wondering how many episodes there are in Season 2. And I assume you're talking about our wonderful live safaris, Kerry. I don't know how we would quite go about classifying where our seasons begin and end, although I quite like the idea of doing that. You know, we have Season 1 in the wet season of the first year and Season 2 in the dry season of the first year, and so on and so forth. Kerry, if you are looking to rewatch some of the older shows, I'm sure you should be able to find them on YouTube itself. There are a couple of older episodes, if we could call them that. But of course, as I said, we are live, so classifying ourselves as a season might be interesting. And there's also the archive on WildEarth TV. So go to our website, have a look at WildEarth TV, and you should find all of the old episodes settled down there somewhere. And there you go, Kerry, you can catch up. You can have a look at the way things change and the way things stay the same. Maybe even explore the way the different animals have changed and grown. So the lovely thing about these live safaris is that you can essentially watch watch the entire life of an animal play out, not just coming across on safari for a week or 2 weeks and seeing an animal once or maybe twice if you're lucky. But you actually get to follow the sagas and the day-to-day triumphs and tragedies of each of our wonderful animals. Who knows, fingers crossed, we might even bump into Queen Karula today. Now, I'm sure she has been deeply distressed that we have neglected her birthday. I'm sure it's probably put a bit of a dampener on her day. And so I shall say the inevitable. Happy birthday, Karula, the Queen of Juma, the female leopard that has made this the heart of her territory. I'm sure up until right now she was deeply, deeply saddened, missing her birthday wishes. A much beloved leopard female. Now apparently she is 13 today, according to the Panthera documents. Coming into, maybe she's at that age where she doesn't want to be reminded about every birthday. Not the youngest, 13 is fairly old.
How much is that in leopard?
How much is that in leopard? I would say, what does that put her in? Probably about her, it's actually probably putting her close to, you know, 50s, maybe 60s. Generally, female leopards don't live that much further beyond that, but there are exceptions to that. I know her mother lived to about 18. There's a leopard that was last seen on Londolozi who also lived up to about 18 years old. So I think our Queen Karula has many happy birthdays ahead. She still had cubs. She has 2 cubs at the moment, as far as we know. And so she's not yet at the menopausal stage. Yes, so Viam's right. Let's say about 50 odd in leopard years. But happy birthday, Karula, much beloved. Perhaps she will make a surprise appearance for us.
She can get senior discounts.
Senior, yes. Karula can have some senior discounts on the local Steenbok and Deka, and maybe just a pensioner's pass in terms of transport. The Ides of March, Karula, an appropriate birthday date. Beware the Ides of March. Right, let's go and investigate and see how Treehouse Dam is looking like. I wonder this afternoon if Amy is watching. Amy tasked us with finding her a bush baby yesterday evening, a task at which both James and myself failed, unfortunately, but we shall try again this afternoon, Amy. If you are watching our show, she is in Amy in California. Actually, that's a very good point. There might be several Amy's watching our show. I'm actually just looking at the mushrooms in the road. The after effects of the rain that we've been experiencing. Now, most of you will know, with fairly good common sense, that unless you know absolutely which mushrooms are edible and which aren't, you should stay well away from the different types. Steph sent a picture around of, what was it again? It was an inky black, oh, hold on a second, it was an inky black mushroom or something like that. What was it? I don't actually know my mushrooms all that well, to be totally frank. There we go. Inky black cap was Steph's mushroom. That was what he was looking at. I don't know what that is, to be completely frank, but it's nice to see. And some really lovely butterflies fluttering about as well. All coming out after. Oh, that is such a pretty butterfly. Come on, butterfly, come back here. Let's see if it decides to. There it is. Beautiful. What have you got there, Wildy?
We had a butterfly.
Oh, the butterfly was sitting there.
Oh.
It's hanging around the virtual reality rig. Oh, and gone. Brent apparently has managed to get 15 or so different species of butterfly on camera, which is exceptionally impressive. More so on the part of the cameraman, because butterfly are not exactly known for their atoms. That butterfly, so it's something deeply bright and orange and red.
You're here?
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
Dear, we do apologize for the technical difficulties that we have been experiencing this afternoon because we only have one vehicle and it seems as though we're going through bad patches in terms of signal. What we will be doing if that happens again is we will keep going to our brief tech loop, and if we're still without signal for a bit longer, then we'll be keeping you company with the Djuma Dam camera as a temporary option until we reach signal spots once again. Now there is a possibility that we might actually try swapping vehicles so that we change and I go on to Wendy instead of Rusty. Maybe that might make a difference. We'll keep our fingers crossed in that respect and we'll just play it by ear. And we do give you a big apology, but also a big thank you for sticking with us. It's not always that easy bringing you a live safari from the middle of South Africa or from a corner of South Africa right in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes even the cell phone signal doesn't work. So the technology involved is just one of those things, and it's because we can't edit and we can't script and we can't plan, sometimes things just go a little bit haywire. But we do thank you for all of you for sticking with us. We are working on it, I promise. If we had an easy solution as to what's been happening with our signal, we would have fixed it by now, but at the moment it appears to be stumping our technical geniuses. Hopefully that's going to change relatively soon. It seems as though this particular patch is fairly stable. We should be okay from now. I'm going to try and stay where I think that we will have relatively stable signal, and we'll see where we go from there. Luckily I don't have any, well, luckily, unluckily, depending on how you look at it, I don't have any tracks necessarily that I want to be following up on in terms of leopard or lion tracks, and we've got an equal chance wherever we go. So we're happy to stick around the western corners. Quiet this afternoon. I wonder where all of our animals are hiding. They should be out enjoying the sunshine and a break from being damp and rained upon. Here's one. Very far away though. Hello, little steenbokkie. Let's see if we can find a nice spot. Ooh, goodness. Don't disappear, little steenbokkie. Ran away. Oh, there he goes. Steenbok dashed off. That flash, it's amazing. You know, you couldn't see it because it ran away just before we managed to get a camera on it. You couldn't see it, but that flash of white underneath the tail, it's amazing how that draws the eye to the animal. It's one of those clever little techniques of a Steenbok. If they're running away from something, they lift the tail up so that animal can follow them really clearly, that the eye is instantly drawn. And if you're a predator, they don't have the same level of color vision that we do. They do see certain colors, but most of what they see is in grayscale. So that eye is drawn to the white tail, and then as soon as the Steenbok manages to get a little bit of distance from it, it zigs and it zags and then stops dead and drops its tail. And as soon as that white flash disappears, the predator's eye keeps following where they think it was going to be. It's known as flash coloration. It's a very, very clever little technique employed not just by certain mammal species like the Steenbok, but also by other animals such as frogs. There's a couple of frog species with a very bright red strip that runs along the inside of their thighs as a way of surprising a predator and then drawing their eye and disappearing. Although it was fairly drizzly this morning, it wasn't a huge amount of rain that came through. Enough to fill up the dams a little bit over the last week or so. But this morning was fairly negligible. Gerard was wondering how much rain have we had since this morning or since yesterday evening. And apparently it's less than 2 mils, Gerard. It didn't seem like a huge amount. The puddles in the roads have already mostly dried up. Not too much rain this morning. I think in total over the last week since that front rolled in, we've probably had somewhere close to 70 odd mils, which I'd like to know. I mean, we'll get some proper readings at the end of the rainy season. I'd like to know how much we've had in total in terms of rain. Typically for this area, probably about 450 odd mils would be the standard norm on the average rainy season. And I think we've had, now with this rain, just over 100, maybe about 150 or so, if I had to guess. Still, despite the big rains that we've had, and we are very grateful for them, still not enough to completely undo the effects of the drought, and also coming a bit too late for the grasses of this region. So although they are recovering to an extent, still not going to reach their full total heights that they would normally. Drive along, and since it is quiet, you'll probably find that we're going to stop and chat about a lot of the different plant species that we get out here. And Jamie D was wondering, Jamie D, same name as mine, if there are any plants that are deadly to the animals. And Jamie, yes there are, although it depends very much on the animal species. So for example, those mushrooms that I showed you, there's very few animals out here that I've ever seen nibbling on the funguses. That's probably because they can be equally as toxic to animals as they can to us. And for example, even with this tree, although we're very much straight into the light, this beautiful torchwood, the Balanites tree, that James loves to climb. Now, this is a tree that, whilst not toxic, has medicinal effects to the root systems. What that means is often elephants and porcupines, if they're feeling a little bit upset to the stomach, what they'll do is they'll dig down towards the base and have a look. Look at all that lichen as well on the tree's branches. That's really flourishing and green. Lichen, of course, being an interesting little combination of a bacteria and a fungus, and so essential to life without us realizing it. breaks down rock and then converts it to sand, which then becomes the soil layer. And the soil layer determines the types of plants that you find, and the types of plants determine which types of animals you find in an area. So in a way, it all starts with rocks and lichens. But the root systems down there, those are the ones I was talking about. The roots of the balanites, or the torchwood tree, give off an almost soapy feel, quite alkaline. And those are an interesting way of settling an animal's stomach. So, Jamie, I'm sort of expanding on your question from toxic to medicinal as well, just to give you a broader answer to the way in which the plants operate. But yes, there are toxic plants. There are, for example, poison apples, which belong to the tomato family, that are toxic to certain species, particularly the primates. You'll never see the primates eating them, but other animals can. It just depends on what their bodies are capable of dealing with. The famous tambuti tree, which you won't find in an area like this, so I can't show you at the moment, but if we do get to an area where I find some tambutis, more sort of closer towards the drainage line systems, I'll show you the milky latex that is inside them. And that is exceptionally toxic to human beings. One teaspoon of that, if you consumed it, would kill you, would kill a grown man. But yet elephants and black rhino absolutely love to munch on it. Determined by the different types of animals. Kathy Pickle, you were just saying that was such a beautiful tree. I agree with you. It's one of my favorites. Doesn't quite fall into my top 5 tree list, but definitely one of my favorites. And it's known as a torchwood, also sometimes referred to as a green thorn or a Y thorn because of the Y-shaped thorns. And when we find a nice little example, I'll be able to show you exactly why it's called that. Also known as Balanites mugami is the Latin name. Stunning tree, called a torchwood because the seeds have a very, very high oil content and burn exceptionally well. So they have been used in, as the name might suggest, producing a torch, a flaming light for the people of the area. There's also types of plants, to go back to Jamie's question, there's also types of plants, and I cannot for the life of me, I think there's the Crotalaria distica, which does this, and I think there's others as well. What they do is, if an animal eats the leaves, and they don't always seem to have an instinctive rejection of it, they don't seem to instinctively avoid this particular plant, but what it does to them is it inhibits an enzyme production that halts the growth of the hooves. And as a result, it can actually be toxic in its effects within the body itself, but the external effects that you see are long, curved hooves that grow out at the tip and look exceptionally uncomfortable, and they're very, very ungainly in the animals. And you see it more commonly in reserves without large predators, so on game farms and so on, where you'll see animals wandering around with long hooves, and that's obviously because there hasn't been a predator around to take them out, because it definitely is a huge disadvantage to the animals that consume it. I'll double check which plant it is exactly and just try and remember. It will come back to me. But for the most part, animals, as always, are demonstrating a far better understanding of what is good for them than human beings, and are very well aware of what to avoid. It's my favorite thing to do. Am I going to do it? Yes, probably. Show you a comparison between 2 different types of trees, both with exactly the same effect. So what we have on our right is a spike thorn thicket. I'm just going to unplug myself quickly. There you go, you can see the leaves there. And if you look really closely, you might see some of the spines on them. So these species of trees are used medicinally as well. I'm going to grab some of them. As well as the tree on the left, the silver clusterleaf tree, which has a very similar effect within its leaves. Interesting, because generally silver cluster leaves grow far more towards the sort of seep line sections, whereas you see the spike thorns much more in drainage lines. So this is the silver cluster leaf. Beautiful silvery leaf, and if I turn it around, you can get an idea why it is known as silver cluster leaf. You've got very fine silvery hairs underneath the bottom of them. One of those clever little adaptations for leaves that allow to, or sort of prevent the plant from losing too much water in a hot climate. In contrast, the leaves of the spike thorn, very, very waxy. So not smooth at all, not velvety, but also covered in a film of wax that, again, same purpose, helps with the evaporation of water in the form of a gas. On both of them, when you chew on them, I'm not even going to offer poor VM. No, he's not having it. He says he's not a giraffe. Both of them, if you chew them, take away all of your saliva. It's a very astringent effect. I'm not going to munch them completely, otherwise my mouth will be sealed shut for the next 3 hours. Maybe you'd all appreciate that. Maybe I shouldn't chew away at them. So that's something that has an almost numbing effect. Already my tongue is starting to feel very funny. Ugh. And I'm going to have a quick sip of water to try and regain equilibrium. It does feel rather numb. And it's a great way for us, if you ever find yourself in the bush with stomach problems, especially in a situation where you're lost in the bush and you don't want to lose water to gastric complaints such as diarrhea. 3 of those leaves, chewed and swallowed, will do wonders in terms of acting like Imodium. And having been desperate enough to try it once before, it does actually work. Well, either I got better or the leaves worked, but it happened straight after I ate the leaves, so I'm going to go with the leaves work. But one of those medicinal properties that is very, very useful to human beings, but interestingly, and this is something we chat a lot about, it's something that baby elephants target when they're teething. When their teeth are hurting them, they'll go and they'll chew on those plants. Generally, you don't see many animals eating them because of that astringent nature of the leaf. But you'll see baby elephants go and munch on them. It acts like tea gel, or that ulcer gel that you put on the teeth or the gums of teething toddlers when they start to squeal. Or I assume you do. I say that like I have much experience in terms of teething toddlers. Now, if you're a South African mother, that's what you do. You also then give your child a very, very large, thick stick of biltong. That was my chew toy when I was a child. Works exceptionally well, and you develop a taste for biltong. Sorry about this. We're going to have to jump off again. In theory, where is the Allen key gone? There it is. I'm just going to pop my antenna up, my aerial up, since your questions are not going to come through to me all that clearly. Oh, caught in the door. Now, a surprising amount that I have to remind myself how to tighten and loosen something. There we go. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. There we go. That should sort us out. Then we'll be able to hear your questions coming through more clearly. Make sure I don't lose that. Okay. Let us continue on. There we go. Much better. Much improved. A bit about the plants. Survey 94 on YouTube is wondering, are there certain ones that you should avoid? And the answer is yes. Things like poison apples and such like are quite a good example. Here's a nice useful little plant. Let me grab its leaves for you. Doing tree chat. Got a beautiful leadwood off to our left as well. Young leadwood. Now that's a tree to be avoided, Survey 94. Not in terms of eating, doesn't really have much in nutritional value. but it's got thick, strong, very, very powerful spines on it. So spines are modified branches, unlike thorns, which are modified leaves. So a tree to be avoided if you don't want a flat tire, or alternatively, if you ever find yourselves in flip-flops or thongs if you're Australian, because that's a bizarre way of referring to flip-flops or sandals, to be avoided when walking or jumping. One of them actually, a friend of mine accidentally jumped on a leadwood spine, and she ended up almost having to have surgery on the secondary infection because it went into the bone. It was so powerful that it went into the bone of her foot. Oh, gives me the shivers just thinking about it. The tip broke off in the bone part of her heel. Oof, horrendous. Right, one more. To plants not to be avoided, plants to be utilized. If you find yourself in the situation where perhaps the spike thorn leaves haven't worked, or you haven't managed to find yourself a spike thorn or a silver cluster leaf, and you have a medical or an evacuation of the bowels, this is your next step if you find yourself without toilet paper, colloquially known, strangely enough, as the toilet paper tree or the weeping wattle. Nice thick leaves, and most importantly, unlike quite a few of the plant species out here, a notable absence of thorns, thus performing a suitable role.
Danny,
Yes.
speaking of toilet paper, I think that's a civet.
Do I think that's a civet? Hey, that's interesting. Let me jump out and have a look at that. Yes, it could well be. I just want to go a bit closer. So a civet, a mysterious nocturnal animal of the area, one that we don't see all that often. No, you know what this is? Funnily enough, we're looking at this, right? Here's a question. Very typical shape. I'm going to bring it for you. Now, wildebeest is not that far off in terms of size of this particular dung. A civet, pound for pound, defecates the largest, what would I call it? It's the largest poo of any animal relative to its size I have ever seen. It's extraordinary to witness. But this is not civet poo, this is something else. Very, very typical shape for this particular animal. And there we go. And I'll break it open for you, but I'm going to make you guys guess what this particular pile of poo happens to be. I'll break it open. Let me just dump that one there. Right. Unlike the civet feces, this is pure grass. Now, a civet is an insectivore. It runs around munching on insects, particularly millipede. But this is a coarse grass eater. And that shape, remember this shape. See if it reminds you of anything. The shape of this dung. It's very, very typical of this particular animal. Quiz time. Should be able to get it fairly quickly, so we'll take the first three answers very quickly. Which particular animal is responsible for that dung? And I think because you guys are getting so good at these quizzes and the way in which you've learnt alongside us, I think in future some of our quizzes will have to be time restricted, have to be restricted to the first three people that get it right. I was going to tell you something. Oh, I know actually where there's a civet tree. I'm going to go look for that as well. So civets, unlike this animal, have a set place in which they deposit their feces. It's known as the civet tree. And as I was saying with plants, and that there's certain animals that can eat plants, or eat certain types of plants, whilst others can't, the same goes for the civet and the millipedes. Most animals do not enjoy millipedes. They've got a cyanide effect to them. One of those interesting aspects, and it's a way of animals evolving to reduce the competition between them. Kathy, who is watching on YouTube. Kathy, what I'm going to tell you about could change your world if you ever happen to find it, unless you are, of course, vegetarian, in which case I do apologize. You're wondering what biltong is. Biltong, which is a very, very typical South African meal. Let's see if I back up a little bit. I hear you. We got one. Ah, there you are. Let's go back a little bit. Ah, it's one of my favorite little animals. Little dwarf mongoose, keeping a close eye on us. I heard them long before I saw them. They're little squeaking contact calls that the smallest predator in the Sabi Sands, or mammal predator at least, capable of sniffing and digging out anything from dung beetles to scorpions. They are famous scorpion tacklers. There are more in there.
Awesome.
I definitely saw one dash in there. Interesting how some dwarf mongoose groups are much more relaxed than others. Sorry, Kathy, I will get to your question in a moment. There we go, foraging around. And whenever I see dwarf mongoose like this, I always look to see if there's any hornbill, yellow-billed hornbills, around the area. They've got quite a close relationship, those two species, bird and mongoose. Extra set of eyes for the mongoose up high, and the hornbills get to claim whatever sort of scraps there are left over from the mongoose kills. They don't want to play nicely though on screen. Oh, there was one. They're living in this termite mound up ahead of us. Let's see. I don't see any heads poking out. I think they've all managed to evacuate and make their way across the road. Some groups are just naturally more shy than others. We'll keep our eyes peeled. We'll see if we can't get a nicer dwarf mongoose sighting than that. Kathy, I was telling you a bit about biltong. Now, biltong is a South African treat. It is dried and salted and spiced meat put together in a way that is a very traditional South African recipe, and of course something that stemmed from a time in which the fur trekkers moving through an area they didn't have fridges or storage facilities. We come from a very hot climate, and they had to try and figure out a way of making meat last for longer. And that's much like pickling fish or herrings or something like that. They came up with the idea of salting and drying the meat out. South Africans, we are raised on it. Most people really enjoy it. It's the equivalent of jerky. But having tasted jerky, I have to be completely honest, it's really incomparable. Have you ever tasted jerky, Liam? Don't worry, biltong's better. Biltong is hands down 10 times better. Now, apparently you can get vegetarian biltong as well. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, but try it, yeah. Has been rated by Geraldine in Final Control. She says -5 out of 10, so we'll take her word for that. And biltong is made out of, traditionally, it can be anything from beef to venison, so the wild game biltong as well. Now, Jennifer and Susan, in answer to that dung quiz that I gave you, that quick dung quiz, have answered warthog, and they're very much on the right track. There's two animals that have a shape similar to that kidney-shaped or bean-shaped, but it's not a warthog. A warthog is slightly smaller than that. The animal we're looking for is considerably larger. Safari Dean has said owl. Safari Dean, unless it is a vegetarian owl, let's just see if this mongoose is going to pop its head back up. I don't know why they persist in settling in the middle of the termite mound, the termite mound in the middle of the road, but that is where they are. Safari Dean, I can sort of see what you mean. I've seen owl pellets before. But that being said, I don't know that many owls that feed on grass. Perhaps I should have clarified that that dung was completely grass-based. So those bits that you were seeing were not fur, or bits of fur. And owls, of course, swallowing their prey whole. So if they're not producing the pellet balls that they throw up, you do get tufts of hair and bones in their feces when they scat. Hello, little mongoose. Yes, we're your friends. Watching us intently. They're naturally exceptionally curious little animals. And I have sat before for 10 or so odd minutes, 10, 15 minutes, right next to a group of dwarf mongooses, and just sat incredibly quietly, something that we can't really do on the live drives. And when I did that, they actually came right up and started climbing up my vehicle tires to investigate exactly what we were. Yes, little one. Making me feel horribly guilty about driving past you, but that's obviously, they know that vehicles pass over this area on a regular basis. As you can see, we're not the first to have passed through here today, and yet they seem to be quite happy there. Obviously, the passage of vehicles doesn't seem to bother them too much. Hello. Here we go. We have our winners of the quiz. Jen, Donna and Pamela to our Who Dung It competition or quiz. You have got it absolutely correct. It was a zebra. So coarse, large pieces of grass, so not a ruminant that was munching on that. And then the kidney shape is what's usually very, very typical of a zebra dung. Now that was not fresh at all. You might have noticed the very pale color to it. Also, the termites had started to go to work on breaking down the dung. So not fresh zebra dung, pale in color and very dry, but zebra dung nonetheless, and easily identifiable by that their dung is almost a kidney bean shape, if I could describe it like that. I'm just looking around. Look, I'm looking at that termite mound. We spoke yesterday a lot about termite building and the fresh termite mounds. And there you have it. I think the question actually came from Naomi. I'm not sure if Naomi's watching. She asked about whether or not termite mounds get rained or washed away. But you can see that darkish color compared to the lighter bits. The darker parts are fresh building from termites, and that's all been done in the last 24 hours or so. So the speed at which termites add to their little mounds, particularly on cloudy days, which is why it's so noticeable now. On cloudy days when the soil is wet and easy to collect, their productivity in terms of adding to their budding termite mounds exceptionally rapid. Just an interesting little observation. One of those things that makes these live drives fun is not just you get to follow the stories of the animals, but you get to see things changing, not just day to day, but from morning until afternoon. And as I said, we are live, and for a new viewer that has joined us, Tusky was wondering since they've just joined us, or she's just joined us, we're wondering where we are based. And the answer to that is we are on a place called, we have our own tiny little portion of a 4 million hectare area in the northeastern corner of South Africa. So part of the greater Kruger Park area, an area that most people, I think, have heard of. It's the largest conservation area in South Africa, one of the largest in Africa. Not quite the largest though. There are some tremendously impressive places in Central and Northern Africa. In Tusky, we are coming to you live from Juma and Arathusa in the Sabi Sands. That's our little wonderful and much beloved portion of a conservation area that has remained unchanged and untouched for many, many years. Oh goodness, a heartbeat that is larger than the mongoose. I think this is our first antelope. It's incredible. We did have a steenbok, but the steenbok ran away from us. Spotted a nicer example. Oh no, don't go away, boy. Oh well, we'll go with the Kudu bull that's walking across in front of us. I think it's our usual friendly collection of Kudu males. Here goes the first one. We usually see about 5 of them together. And how's that to see how green everything is? To see the animals looking happy and healthy for the time being. Beautiful. Here's my favorite Kudu bull, at least I think it's him. Oh, lots of impala rutting sounds as well. My favorite Kudu bull is the one at the back. I love the shape of his horns. They're close together and they're so beautifully twirled. There's something very exciting happening up ahead. We're going to go and look. Sorry, Kudu gentlemen, you are so beautiful. But I want to show you what the impala are currently up to, if they keep doing it. Yep, I was right. There's 5 of them here. The impala have stopped for the moment, so we're able to observe our Kudu for now. Those marvelously thick necks holding up the incredible weight of those twisted and curled horns. A bachelor herd of Kudu males. Not Zeus though, the famous Zeus the Kudu. His horns are slightly further spread apart. Amazing how, having observed the way in which the animals work, how often we get to know the patterns of their movements and the way where we see sort of the same regular individuals. Let's go and get a nicer view of one of them. And at the same time, put ourselves in a position where we can watch the impala up to their shenanigans. View, but he is going to move. Hello, boys. I'm glad for Andreen that she got to get a sort of a sense of scale as to just how large those Kudu bulls actually are. They are tremendously tall. It's probably out here in this particular section of the Kruger Park area. They're probably going to be the second largest antelope that you could see in terms of weight, and the tallest in terms of height. Coming back to these rutting impala, once we've got a nice view of the Kudu. But Andreen, they are enormous, and they would stand probably just up at the shoulder, very close to my eye line in terms of height, just to give you a rough perspective of scale. I'm 5'7", if that helps to clarify a little bit. Don't disappear, boy. We want to show everyone how beautiful you are. Those long legs built for speed, not necessarily stamina in the same way something like a wildebeest is built. And he's looking off intently. Oh, look at that. Really stunning, stunning bull. What you looking at, boy? A ridge of hair across his back, across onto his neck. There is. Is there another one in there? Mm-hmm. Oh yes, there I see movement. And as this kudu walks out into the road in front of us, it's one of the younger males, so not as clear as on the others, but those powerful front shoulders and the lumps around the top of the shoulder blades. Jamie D has put forward a really good suggestion, or asking, look at the scar, by the way, on that male's rump. He's suffered some kind of an injury that is now healing. And I think that was probably quite deep when it happened initially. But Jamie D was wondering, are there those lumps on top of the kudu's shoulders for fat storage? And no, not as far as I know, although it was really not a bad guess. In a way, you're thinking similar to a camel. And it's more for a muscle attachment point to hold up those horns. The horns, of course, being solid bone, unlike antlers of deer. In antelope, the horns are solid bone with a keratin sheath and exceptionally heavy to hold up. And because they're long, you know, the longer, just due to the way that levers work, the longer something is, the more force is required to hold it up on the end of it, if that makes sense. So that versus that. The powerful shoulders and the powerful neck, those muscles are for holding the head up and then for fighting each other when it comes to that point where they're competing for the attention of the females. And that is what those lumps are for, more than for fat storage. Not quite as arid an area as the camels have to contend with. Nevertheless, still an animal that can adapt fairly well to dry conditions, just like a camel can. So in dry conditions, the kidney is working extra hard in a kudu to save or conserve water. The loop of Henle, as it's known, inside an animal's kidney, that is where most of the water reabsorption happens after the blood has been filtered. And in kudu and other species capable of surviving arid conditions, that loop of Henle is particularly long, and in the drought is capable of seriously concentrating the urine. And we find ourselves, unfortunately, blocking a gentleman who would like to use the main road out of the reserve, so let us just let him past us. And so our kudu are disappearing anyway. Well, I think we'll go and have a look at the impala that we're rutting. I'll just let this gentleman go past. Birds! Hello! It was Texan. I got quite a surprise there. We'll just let him move a bit further ahead of us. Since we were talking about the kudu and the way in which they absorb water for the drought, the gemsbok, or the oryx, an animal adapted for much more arid conditions, is capable of doing something similar, but not just that. They're also capable of tricking their brains into thinking that they are cooler than they actually are. So it's a sort of a feedback system, a loop that runs cooled down blood next to the blood that's going up towards the brain, and that then cools down the blood there, and that goes to the temperature receptors within the hypothalamus, the part of the brain that sits at the bottom. So what that does is it tricks the antelope into thinking that it's cooler, or the brain. First of all, it stops the brain from cooking. And second of all, it tricks it into thinking that the animal's body temperature is less than 40 degrees. And in that way, they're actually capable of lifting their body temperature right up. Just answer James's summons. Standing by.
Jamie, have you had any updates at all?
Negative, James, unfortunately not. James just wondering if I have any updates for him in terms of animal sightings. I want to go up along Sandy Patch and just see how things are. James, apparently there's a nice wildebeest sighting at the Jumapan. Something might be worth us going and investigating, depending on how things work out around here. I'm not going to go all the way to Sydney's Dam because I don't think that our signal will manage it. We'll just follow up on these impala that have stopped their games. This is not going to be the clearest example, but impala. Chat a little bit about leopard's question. Go, as they move into the dense vegetation. And this applies, sorry, excuse me, lost my voice there for a second. This applies as well to the kudu and to all antelope species. So leopard was wondering, why is it in certain species try not to talk and drink at the same time. Oops. Leopard was wondering why certain species of antelope, the females have horns and in some they don't. And the answer to that, Leopard, is there's a very, very strong correlation between the females having horns and the environment in which they live. So having horns serves two purposes. One is defense against predators. The other is other males and competing with other males in order to pass on their genetics. So for animals like the wildebeest, for example, that are running around the pan at the moment, they live in a more open environment. They tend to frequent open woodland or clearings, grassland clearings. That is where they like to be. And thus the females have horns in order to protect themselves and to protect their offspring from predators. All of the more closed off vegetation that little bit of a signal break up there. So antelope species that inhabit dense vegetation, they rely more on hiding away than they do on fighting off predators. So kudu, nyala, impala are a hindrance to them because you get stuck in the vegetation. Just imagine a male kudu like this, with all of these trees back. Going through a area, but the kudu have to run with the males have to run with their heads back in order to prevent themselves getting entangled in the bushes. And so in answer to that question, it's very much to do with habitat points. And the eland is a really good example of this because eland belong to the same tribe as the kudu or the inyala, the same family of antelope, and yet the females have horns in that particular in elands. And that's because they frequent more open, more arid areas, and thus, as that theory shows, need the horns, the females need the horns for protection. The reason why the males in Kudus and Inyala and Impala have retained horns is because they need to fight each other for access to females. There's an interesting little dichotomy at work. Now, Andreen was the one who pointed out how
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
back, and apologies once again. Obviously, the trip along Sandy Patch was a little bit too much. We're going to head back towards quarantine area, see if staying in that area won't help us for the majority of the afternoon. And I know that I have signal at the hyena den, so that will be the plan when it starts to get a little bit cooler. Now, before you were thrust back onto watching the Djuma Dam camera, we were chatting a bit about Andreen's question as to whether or not I'd mentioned how much a kudu weighs. And it weighs a good couple of 100 kilograms, so we're looking probably for a large male kudu. But hold on, let's see if we won't come back out. Liam spotted a plated lizard. Sorry, Andreen, I'll get to you with specific numbers in 1 second. Hope you are still with us. Now, Liam just spotted a giant plated lizard, which is an awesome little creature that has a very close relationship to the dwarf mongoose termite burrows or mounds that they live in, because it eats their dung, or their scat actually is the correct terminology for that. But unfortunately, I think a little bit too scared to come back out. Nope. In that case, since he's not going to poke his head back out, he is probably basking in the sun as an exotherm. So a large male kudu, back to Andreen's question, because I don't think our lizard is going to be brave enough to come out while we are still here. Andreen, a large male kudu weighs about just larger than a large male lion. Roughly between 250 to 270 kilograms. Now that is, in pounds, over 500, close to 550 pounds for a large male kudu. The female weighing about, I would say about 50 odd kilograms less than that. So 100 odd pounds less. A significantly large animal, smaller in weight in terms of bulk than a waterbuck, which is why I said it is the second largest antelope that we could see in this particular area, but taller than a waterbuck height-wise. A waterbuck weighing probably about 50 odd kilograms or 100 odd pounds more than a large male kudu. We shall do is we're going to head across towards the dam camera, first of all because those impala are there at the moment. We seem to be seeing huge herds at the moment. We'll go and investigate. We'll see if Nelson is there, the one-horned, one-eyed impala. Actually, that's a really nice shot of that particular bird. Don't fly, don't fly, don't fly. Is that okay from the angle, Wildy? Thank you. Trying to get it in the afternoon light. A southern white-crowned shrike. A beautiful, beautiful little bird against the bright blue sky. Not too difficult to see where the name southern white-crowned came from, with that vividly, starkly white head. Must use Omo to wash his head. Omo, of course, being the washing powder famed in South Africa for keeping your whites white. Now shrikes, we've got quite a few of the different shrike species here with their very broad, thick and powerful bills. I've been bitten, strangely enough, although I don't think bitten is the right word, pecked by a shrike before, and I actually still bear the scar somewhere on my finger from that. I pulled the shrike. It was a fiscal shrike, which is not a shrike that we get in this area, but we do in Johannesburg. And it was a fiscal shrike that had fallen into the swimming pool that I pulled out. And in return for my kindness, it slashed open my finger to the point that I almost needed stitches as a child. An interesting lesson. It's funny, I once pulled an Indian miner out of the swimming pool and got exactly the same response from the frightened creature. And for a year afterwards, every time the Indian miners saw me outside my house, they would dive bomb me. A lesson learnt about my generosity there. And those Oh, look at that. That's interesting. Probably a mated pair. Not often you see them together. Very sweet to witness. Also interesting. You usually see them on their own. They're not, as far as I know, they are not cooperative breeders. In the same way that Retzes or the white-crested helmet shrikes might be. A nice little pair. Shrike's famous for having a larder. So when they attack and kill insects or small rodents, although these are a little bit small to be out for small rodents, well, maybe a baby they might be able to get to. What they'll do is they will go and impale their hapless victim on a thorn and thus build up a storage system where they can return and feed on later. It's what's given them the name the butcher bird. I think that's largely in the UK that they are referred to as butcher birds, although if our American audience could let me know if that's a name that they utilize for shrikes in that part of the world. Not all species of shrike do that. I know that the red-backed shrike do. I'm not sure about the white-crowned shrike. Oh, here comes a third. Hidden behind the branch, though. So, quite possibly a trio of male, female, and offspring. And joined by it's a scimitar. Awesome! I thought it was a woodhoopoo, but it's a scimitar. Now, that's not a bird that we manage to get on camera all that often. Look at it using its probing beak. You see how different it looks from the woodhoopoo. That bill, not red, but black. It's a bird that's very commonly heard. It's got a piercing whistling call. We don't often get to see them. Now that's exciting. Scimitar, like the tool, the farming tool, descriptive of the shape of the beak. And look at it hopping around, using the sensitive probes at the end to dig underneath the peeling layers of bark. So yes, scimitar, like a blade or a saw, a tool. S-C-I-M-I-T-A-R, scimitar. I know that sometimes our South African accents the words don't come through as clearly as they should. That's awesome. Just goes to show what you can see when you sit down and stick around in one place. I just want to show you very quickly the difference between the woodhoopoos that we see on a regular basis and the scimitar. The woodhoopoos, of course, that cackling, laughing call that we often hear. Do you know, I just looked it up in the index and then promptly forgot. There we go. So these are our woodhoopoos. They very often look black because that fluorescent color, like the starlings, if you don't get them in the right light, the green doesn't show through as clearly, but a bright, vivid red bill. As opposed to that, if I turn over onto a scimitar, our common scimitar, that's the one we're looking at here, with much darker and a slight sort of more of a curve to the beak, but very similar in shape. I was once told, now I don't know if this is a local legend or something that just some guide made up, but when I was doing my guide training, we were taught that if you saw a scimitar, you would be able to, or you would see one of the big five within the drive or within the afternoon or morning that you were out. But we'll see. We shall see if that proves to be the case. If we come around the corner and it's a buffalo, then we'll know that the local legend has proved to be the case. I'm still not entirely sure, though, where that came from. I've always viewed it with a slight sense of skepticism. Skepticism is not a word, is it? Cynicism. I don't think skepticism is a word at all. I was also told that if you want to, I was taught if you wanted good luck in terms of sightings, you have to grab a bush of the magic worry. And since it has been getting to the point where heartbeats are fairly, absent on the ground, perhaps we should grab a magic worry leaf on our way past. So it's magic worry bushes for Big 5 sightings. And then the toilet paper tree, or the weeping wattle, that is to keep Big 5 sightings away, apparently. And that's something that I was taught. I think it was more of a tradition that was between the various ranges of the gentleman who was telling me the story. But he told me that once he got lost in the dark walking back on a walk, and he grabbed a piece of weeping wattle and put it in his bag in order to stave off any dangerous encounters in the dark on foot, and he got back to camp safely. And then for weeks after, we had the worst luck in terms of sightings. I couldn't understand why until the day he discovered the slowly wilting leaves of the weeping wattle in his bag and had to throw them back overboard. And as soon as he did that, his sightings luck came right back to him. Superstition more than anything else, but now that I've said that, I'm checking really carefully to make sure that I did chuck those leaves overboard. It seems as though I did. We're making our way down towards the Jumapan for a couple of reasons. One, I said the impala might be entertaining as it starts to get cool, but also because what I want to do is see if we can't manage a virtual reality rig recording of being in the middle of a herd of impala. And let's see how that works out. If it does, then you'll get a... Oh, awesome. Never mind. All plans waylaid. Look who's hiding in a marula tree. Oh. Very cool. In this afternoon light, a striking bright red of a ground hornbill. Now, I get exceptionally excited when I see these birds. Interesting, this is in a very similar area to where James saw the one the other night on the sunset safari. I get so excited. You're looking at one of the most endangered bird species in Africa. There's about, from what we understand, there's about 1,500 breeding pairs, or individuals in the world, which equates to about 400 breeding females in the world. So you're looking at an incredibly endangered species of bird. Roughly the size, if I had to compare it for you, it is roughly the size of, I would say about a swan would be a good estimate. Apparently this morning you heard them calling. Also one of the most beautiful sounds first thing in the morning. Coo, 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 coo. Coo, 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 coo. Coo, coo, coo. Almost sounds like a hollow drum. Its beak open. I think it's actually quite hot. It's going to go. It's going to go. And, oh, you going, what are you doing? Are you going to fly? Or have you changed your mind? It's so wonderful to see them. There's been huge conservation efforts that have gone into bringing the ground hornbill population back from the brink. They are exceptionally persecuted, not just for local traditional muti or medicine, but also because they are, as with all hornbill species, they are very territorial, quite aggressive birds. Now, we often have a problem with yellow-billed hornbills coming to pick at the windows because apparently they're not the brightest of the bunch, and they think that the reflection is another hornbill. Now, that's fine for a yellow-billed hornbill, which is fairly small, but a big bird like that, and you can see how powerful that beak is, built for snake killing and catching, it actually will break the windows of the houses that it attacks its reflection in. And that's one of their reasons for a declining number. Something that I used to do at the area I used to, or the reserve I used to work on, is we would actually follow that beautiful coo-coo-coo-coo call first thing in the morning until we'd worked out exactly where they had chosen as a nest site. And in fact, the last nest we found was in a tree very similar to this one. It was in a marula tree where a dead branch had broken off, and had left a nice sizable cavity in which the hornbills were raising their chicks. And we'd go and we'd take the second egg after the first egg had hatched, which might sound tremendously cruel, but it isn't, because the second chick never survives. The second egg is purely an insurance policy. It's a way of ensuring that if the first egg doesn't hatch, they still have a second chick. But as soon as that first chick is hatched, it's almost a death sentence for the second chick. It is outcompeted and bullied to the point that it dies. So we would take that second egg away, and we would send it to the Mabula Ground Hornbill Project, which they'd have space for about 15 birds a year, and they hand-raise the chicks with puppets made to look like the heads of the adults, before putting them into cages with adult birds, and eventually getting to the point where they can release them into the wild. And a surprisingly high success rate in terms of the survival and re-establishment of ground hornbill populations. And they're such beautiful birds that we really don't want to be in a position that we lose them as a species completely. So if any of you ever go and visit Kruger, and it's something we're going to go and do now, we're going to try and reposition to get a different view. They always ask that you report any ground hornbill sightings at the gate, as well as rare antelope sightings, something like roan or sable sightings or tsessebe sightings. And you report those at the gate, and you try, if you can, to sex the individual, so whether it's male or female or a juvenile, and look as well for tags around their legs. Now, I doubt that this is a tagged individual, but nevertheless, let us go and have a look, because whilst we don't report such sightings to Kruger Gates, we do record it on Panthera's data, so that they've got an accurate record. So since I suspect this is a male, but I can't see fully, so let's go around and see if we can have a good look at the chin. And I'll show you what we're looking for once we get there. And Catherine, it doesn't look as though he's found a friend, but that doesn't mean that there isn't another hornbill here. Apparently with James you did see 2 ground hornbills. Now they're a little bit skittish in my experience. They're not used to vehicles just yet, although the individuals in Kruger have now been known to go up and attack and peck cars. So Catherine, I haven't seen another individual. Doesn't mean there isn't one. Hello boy. Fairly certain it's a male. Good scratch. Those feet, just like the feet of the yellow-billed hornbill, and yet so much larger. They really are big birds in terms of height. He'd probably come up to his head height would probably reach up to my hip. This is so awesome to see this. I know that we were seeing 3 in the beginning, and we were really hoping that they were going to decide to nest on Juma. We haven't seen any evidence that they have. Now look, have a look under the chin of this individual. The bright red face. You see how bulging that gular sac is underneath, that bright red patch underneath his beak? Now that is very typical of a male ground hornbill. And then the casque, the sort of the top part of the beak, made for amplifying that call that they produce. I agree, Debbie. As I said, to have the ground hornbills regularly on Juma, and to keep our fingers crossed that if not this year, because we are getting to the end of the breeding season, if not this year, then next year, perhaps we will get to see chicks. Now, I don't think they've nested here this year, and the reason I say that is I think we should have been hearing them every single morning if they had chosen to nest around quarantine. So during the breeding season, and whilst raising their chicks, they're very vocal, but they stick around the same nesting site or where they are raising their chicks. It's another reason why they are such endangered birds, is the length of time they have to spend reaching sexual maturity. 7 years before a ground hornbill can breed. The rest of that time is spent raising their parents' next generation. There we go, just to give you an indication of males versus females, so that next time some of you go to Kruger, you'll be able to accurately report. There's the male. You can see what I mean about the bulge underneath his chin. And the little bulge on the top, the casque that I was talking about, that amplifies the call. Now the females also have that sort of that patch underneath their chin with a bit of blue in the center, but a smaller casque at the top of the beak. And then the juveniles, definitely very different and very easy to identify. The southern ground hornbill, put on the same page as the secretary bird for a reason. They're also expert snake killers, just like the long-legged secretary birds of the open areas. Also going after, again, small rodents, things like frogs, amphibians, insects. They are fearsome predators. I'm just looking around really carefully to see if there's not another individual somewhere on the ground. I can't see one though. Well, that's an interesting comment from Aqua, watching in Honolulu. And apparently in their zoo in that area, they have a breeding program for ground hornbills. And that is incredibly valuable to the species as a whole. And it has become more and more successful, the efforts that have gone into conserving these beautiful big birds. Look at the way it's a struggle when your beak's that long to really groom your chest properly. So Aqua, that's really interesting. The conservation efforts that have gone into the ground hornbills, they're starting to show that there are actually more individuals in this area than originally thought, which is such a relief to hear that the population is climbing once again. One of the other things I used to do is whenever I traveled to a different area, we used to assess its suitability for releasing ground hornbills into the area. And you discover by chatting to local people as well, in the little rural villages, that their numbers might not be as small as we think they are. There's places that I traveled to where the ground hornbills were meant to be extinct completely, where there are large baobabs up to the northwestern part of the country, huge, beautiful baobabs that are perfect nesting sites for ground hornbill. And we thought they were completely extinct, only to be told by the local ladies that they see them every day moving through the townships. And then as soon as we heard that, we immediately went into attempting to educate the population about how special they are. Because not only, I've said that they do have some value in terms of traditional medicine, which is always an unfortunate aspect of the use of animals out here, but they've also got quite a strong spiritual link to, and I can't remember exactly how it plays out, but you can see why, with their big black bodies and the bright red faces, how they could have a hold on people's imagination. And throughout the world, whatever particular religion or culture you happen to witness or observe, you'll always find that there is a tie-in between the people's culture and the animals that they bring into it. And I'd love to double check and see exactly. And I think in some it is almost a farrier of the dead between life and to the afterlife, a bearer of souls. Well, fingers crossed for breeding in the next year. I really hope they decide to come here. Now, I wanted to try and check to see if there were any leg tags on this individual. Unfortunately, he hasn't put himself in a very clear view. But the ones that we've been seeing recently, and I'm sure he is one of them, they haven't got any leg tags. And Mary Ann was wondering, because none of the ones we seem to see are leg tagged, she was wondering, is this a good thing for the species as a whole? Mary Ann, I don't think it's either. to be completely honest. I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing about the tagging is that it allows researchers to monitor the movements of bird populations and individuals, but that doesn't need to be done for every single bird. And of course, regardless of however gently you do it, that is always going to be, tagging an individual bird is always going to be a slightly traumatic experience for them. It doesn't impact on them afterwards. It's not as though it plays a role in confusing the other members of the species, maybe to the point that they might avoid it, but they will, the scientists and the biologists will monitor certain individuals and get very valuable information from that, but it doesn't need to be done, and in fact, simply wouldn't have the resources to tag every single individual bird. So just the fact that we are able to report these sightings to Panthera is enough for our part to play a little role in the conservation of the species in general. It's one of the things that I love about these live safaris, because I bet you somewhere, someone in the world watching the show now had never heard of a ground hornbill up until now. It's not just something that has gained as much notoriety as elephants or rhino or lion, for example, but still of absolute equal value. A very special sighting and something lovely to see. I don't think he's going to let us get any closer, but I just want to poke my nose around the side of the bushes. Now, man, of course, being the greatest reason for the hornbill decline. It's okay, boy. Don't fly. No, he's going to fly. Just by the way he's watching me. I'm not going to be able to sneak around to see if there's other individuals in the area. You can see immediately his body language changed. In fact, he's going to go anyway. Oh, big stretch. Stretching out the muscles of the wings. He's probably decided this is where he is going to spend the evening. Preening his feathers and making sure that all of the spurs and locks are in place on each individual feather. So vital. No, he definitely doesn't have any tags on his legs. Now, Mr. Tuba, you were wondering, are there any natural predators, not counting man, of course, to the ground hornbill? And it's possible that they could be taken out by a large raptor, but it would be unusual. Leopards would be an animal that would be a natural predator of a ground hornbill. Their biggest natural predators are actually dangers not so much to the adults themselves, but to their chicks. So the last chick we attempted to monitor, the one I was telling you about that they were hidden in the hollow of a marula tree, was killed by a caracal, as far as we could tell. We had a camera trap up, and one day it was there, the next day there was a picture of a caracal and no hornbill chick. So the ground hornbill chicks, caracals, a serval might be a threat to a young one. Leopards absolutely would be a threat. And then for the chicks, when they're left alone in those hollows, they are at risk of things like snakes, maybe even birds of prey like a gymnogene or a harrier hawk that would be able to reach down into the hole itself. That being said, speaking from experience, those hornbill chicks are not defenseless. And I've seen, because we used to go and we'd try in the least invasive way possible just to monitor the chick. We'd put a camera on the end of a stick or a GoPro on the end of a stick and put it down. And I promise you, those chicks will attack it. Now, I've seen we got some incredible footage of that chick attempting to tackle the GoPro. And then unfortunately fell victim to a caracal. In terms of other natural threats, there's an interesting aspect to it. So I've said that they like the hollows of trees to nest in, and they nest in the same place year after year after year. Now, some people have actually blamed overpopulation of elephants for a decline in the ground hornbill population on the basis that elephants push over the big trees that they like to nest in. And we know that the one hornbill group that we were monitoring, their tree was struck by lightning, which destroyed about half of it and destroyed their nest site. And it took them a good 2 or 3 years before we could find them and watch them breed again. Now, they are very particular about it. Now, I personally, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy the thought that an elephant, first of all, I don't think that it's overpopulated with elephants in this area. That's not an opinion I share. And I certainly don't think that you can blame elephants for, yes, they change landscapes, they're keystone species, but I really don't think that you can try and pull that one off. There's just too many leaps of logic there for me. Doesn't sound terribly realistic. And our last few glances of this hornbill. Now, Francois has got a question on not just the breeding of the ground hornbill, but the yellow-billed and the red-billed. And Francois has said is that, as she understands it, watching in, obviously clearly a South African, watching from Pretoria, as they understand it, the red-billed and the yellow-billed, or hornbill, will not breed during a drought. And they were wondering whether or not the recent rains might have come too late for the hornbills to breed. We've actually found a couple of active hornbill nests over the last few months that the hornbills have bred and produced chicks to adulthood. At the moment, there's at least one juvenile red-billed hornbill that sits at the DRC, which is the camp that we live at, and goes meh, meh, almost constantly throughout the day. I haven't seen him in a week or two, but begging mom and dad for food. So the red-billed and the yellow-billed have been breeding. I think that the drought will make it more difficult for them to survive, certainly. I had personally hadn't heard that they won't attempt to breed during a drought. It does make sense because the male has to feed the way in which hornbills breed, and the same applies to the ground hornbill females as well. During their time of confinement, they go into the hollow of the tree and they lose their primary feathers, their flight feathers, and are entirely reliant on the male to feed them until the chicks have hatched and those feathers have grown back. So in a drought with less insects to eat, maybe there's a possibility that that is the case, and that the yellow-billed and the red-billed might not be able to successfully breed. I personally still think they might attempt it, though. One last view of our ground hornbill as it starts to get a bit darker, because I do want to head across to the hyena den before it gets too dark for us to be there. Let's go and investigate what is happening there. Stunning silhouette. Just before I leave, while you've got the view of this ground hornbill, I just want to chat to James quickly. James. James for Jamie. He might be a bit busy. Just listening to the ambient sounds of a beautiful evening. I can hear brown-headed parrots squeaking away at me from the tops of one of the other marula trees. That's creak, creak. Here we go, I can hear them now. Chirrup, chirrup. Sounding just like parrots that you might hear in aviaries around the world. That is the brown-headed parrot, one of the birds that we don't manage to get on camera all that often. Bye-bye, hornbill. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning. That will be something nice to follow up on. Nice to see them getting a bit more relaxed as well with vehicles. The three of them that initially started to visit us here were very, very skittish.
I've just gone through a drainage system. This is the wine. Just alright, I'm just continuing straight on the road now.
So Evie's asked a very broad question. So where Evie lives, and Evie, just let me know where it is exactly that you live. Evie, watching our show, would like to know, because there are lots of birds of prey in her area, she would like to know a little bit about identifying different bird species whilst in flight, or how to identify between eagles, hawks, falcons, and so on. Now, Evie, it's a bit of a difficult question to answer because it depends, of course, on the various species inside your area, and you wanted to know about vultures as well. And it takes time and a little bit to get used to what's known as the general impression of size and shape, which is that quick glance at a bird that will tell you exactly what it is. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at my book to be able to demonstrate more precisely. Generally, falcons, if I'm going to go for general rules, a slightly sharper curve to the wings for the most part. So the silhouette with wings and much smaller than a hawk or an eagle. Hawks tend to have quite broad fan-like tails in order to be able to change direction fairly rapidly. Vultures have very large wingspans for the size of their bodies, for thermaling and soaring across in the skies. But again, that depends on where you are and which area you are in. Our vultures thermal, so they use that very energy-efficient flight. Sorry, there's a really interesting insect here, and I'm hoping it's actually going to land. It was right next to the car. There, it's landed. Awesome, well done, wildebeest. That is a spider hunting wasp. And she's gone right into the road. They sting. Every time I try to back away, she follows me. Not an easy insect to catch on camera. Very seldom completely still. And she's... Don't land there, girl. Come back out into the open. Well, that is a spider hunting wasp. And as her name suggests, she will catch spiders. She will inject her eggs into the corpse of the spider and then dig them into or put them underground into tunnels so that her offspring, the little larvae of the spider hunting wasp, will have an instant meal. It's like the dung beetle's dung ball, but slightly more savage in that respect. A very, very powerful insect. Here she's landed again. She's actually looking at the freshly dug termite mounds. Well done, Liam. There she is again. I'm giving Liam a really difficult task here. This is why live wildlife cameramen, and particularly the individuals who work with us, are, in my mind, probably some of the most gifted cameramen in the world. There is one opportunity to get the shot. How's that? Liam just followed a flying spider hunting wasp. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is hours and hours of practice and some serious skill. And there she lands again. Now that is not a wasp. Well done, Liam. Thank you very much. That is not a wasp that you want to get stung by. I can promise you that. Before I got distracted by the spider hunting wasp, I was in the middle of answering a question about the shapes of birds as seen from below whilst in flight. Now, my best advice to you is, once I get to the hyena den, depending on what's happening, then I'll be able to show you a picture of the different shapes of the birds, and it's much easier to explain with pictures. I want to just get to the hyena den before it gets too dark. So Evie, can I pop your question on hold for now, and I promise you I'll answer it as fully as possible once we have the opportunity to. Suddenly feel like it's amazing how fast these afternoons go. Suddenly feel as though I've got to race across to the hyena den before we lose light completely. Hopefully this time around we won't have the same collision we had yesterday afternoon, where James and myself had exactly the same thought pattern. And that since we seem to be having a little bit of a, after what did we describe it as? The cat day, with leopards and lions everywhere. All of a sudden they seem to have disappeared. Oh goodness. We've got another update, and I'm going to put it to you, but you have to be quick. You have to let me know quickly. Do you want to go to the hyena den, or do you want to go to the elephants on quarantine? What shall we decide to do? One goes that way, one goes that way. first 5 people to get us a majority answer, because I can't sit here in limbo forever. Let's find out what you guys would like to do. Would you like the hyena den, or would you like elephants in the clearing in the sunset? I will reposition so that taking either direction is quick. And if I don't get answers, then I'll just decide for myself. Then Liam gets to choose, and I know exactly what he's thinking. Let's have a look at the sunset while we wait. It is such a beautiful view. Where shall we go, ladies and gentlemen? Clock's ticking until VM gets to decide your particular answer. While we do that, we'll answer the question about the underside of birds while we wait for your answers to come through. This is what I was... Right, there we go, we have answers. Sharp wings, sorry, falcons, sharp wings, falcons and kestrels. That's the angle of the wing that we're going for. And we can't stop to look any longer because the light is disappearing and you all want to go to elephants. Let's go to elephants. Bye-bye, hyenas. I understand your desire. There is nothing better than a peaceful elephant sighting in the evening on quarantine. You would have chosen hyenas, Liam. Oh, there you go. You're lucky you answered as quickly as you did. Back around we go.
Copy. Thanks, Molly.
What's this thing too? James. Sorry, Liam, for a bump there. This is probably the only safari vehicle, well, no, that's not quite true. I suppose as a guest on a safari vehicle, you might roughly get to choose what animals you like. This is the only case where you've got pure democracy at work in terms of voting for the sightings.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us. Good choice, everyone. Sorry, apparently speeding down the same road that I was on before had played a little bit of a role in that signal breakup, which is interesting, because I'd just driven down that road before. But here we go. We are going to be in, whoopsie little tortoise, careful. Thank you, Steph. Steph once again coming to the rescue in terms of offering us up sightings. First it was the Scops owl, now it's a peaceful elephant sighting in the sunset. Good choice, everyone.
How's that for a picture? I'm reluctant to off-road any closer just because this clearing is so lacking in grass, and we've got a nice open view. How's that? There you go. Zira joining us for the first time. Zira saying that she may never get to go to Africa, but that this is the next best thing. Well, Zira, I'm glad that you could join us. It's wonderful always to have new viewers and regular viewers on board with us every day. I hope you'll probably find, Zira, that you become completely addicted to moments like this. Don't forget, we are live every day, twice a day. And Zira, absolutely. Our cameraman, well, without the cameraman, we would all be completely without any of the images that we get to see. We're very fortunate to have a very gifted group or individual group of cameramen. What a view. And Gracie says that she's going to be so excited when the elephants can play together in the water, in the rain. I'm just going to try one more time, sorry everybody, to get hold of James on the Game Drive channel. He has joined us at this sighting. Okay, there we go. We've actually got an answer from him already. He's happy for us to stay. Gracie, absolutely. The elephants are going to be so happy to have various mud wallows around the area. I wonder if this is, I don't think this is the same, no, you know what, I think it is the same herd that we've seen on quarantine a couple of evenings in a row. The one with the curious little babies that come right up to the vehicle. What a peaceful sighting. Deja vu, actually. This is had a very similar sighting and a very similar evening of these elephants munching away on quarantine. Little one flapping its trunk around, reaching up to touch mom. That is the matriarch of this herd, as far as I can tell. And the reason I say that, and it is tricky to see, it's one of those tricky judgment calls to make. I just want to listen for a second, sorry, and I'm actually going to take my earpiece out. I'm just hearing alarm calls.
Oh, there's Kudus or Miana's freaking out behind you.
Miana running across the quarantine behind us. Just going to sit and listen. I'm not wearing my earpiece. Calls are coming from the dam. You can have a look at the stunning view while we do. Yeah, time to go. Sorry, I know this is a beautifully peaceful elephant sighting, but the impala are going absolutely crazy at the dam. Keep your eyes on the dam camera as well as watching us, because I think that there's either a leopard or a lion coming through. Sorry, I know we were having a wonderful, peaceful elephant sighting, but this is the way that live safaris go. It just changes at the drop of a hat. The impala are going bah, 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 bah. Nyala's racing up from the dam behind us. Now, impala don't alarm call for nothing. It's either a leopard or a lion. Could be a cheetah as well. You never know. There's another vehicle coming up here. Where are these impala alarm calling? How's it, F?
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good.
Did you hear the Marla alarm calling here?
Yeah, they said they might have just be like in the dam.
Yeah, is it just at each other or?
Yeah, see like this thing around. You can check it out.
Okay, I'm gonna go check because the Nyala are also running up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, cheers, F. Bye bye. Oops, sorry everybody. Ignored the guests on the back of the vehicle. What's up, Impala? What's got you so excited? The Nyala actually ran from there. Let's try looping that side. The Impala at that end, all looking up towards the lodge. Everybody keep your eyes peeled. Could we get to see Queen Karula on her special day? Impala, what has upset you? It's far. Whatever it is, I think is quite far. It's close to the lodge in the drainage line. And only one or two of them calling. And one very relaxed Inyala. What? What's wrong? I hear you. Please don't tell me you're alarm calling at Inyala, not after I've just sung your praises in terms of your eyesight. And 4 Egyptian geese. What? What are you alarm calling at? There's nothing here. Unless it's already passed. Actually, that might be why that Inyala ran up and why these are so relaxed. Ladies in final control. Did a leopard just walk past you by any chance? The ones that are still alarm calling are looking up in that direction towards final control, and the Inyala that came sprinting past was looking up that way. Not impossible, but the leopard is in the lodge either. A fence for a leopard is pretty much not really a consideration. Sorry, I know this is not the greatest view for you guys. What? What, Impala? What is wrong? All sensors on high alert. I don't know. Only some of these Impala are upset. Not all of them. Now that is an animal that would have been calling if the leopard had walked past. But she's not. Believe it or not, there's an antelope there. There she is. Excuse me, have you seen a leopard by any chance? Or are you lots just a bit crazy? And the impala's just being crazy. So an Inyala, unlike an impala, gives off a deep booming bark. The impala have all gone quiet. We might have just arrived a little bit late. I don't see any tracks along the road. So it might be, after all that I said about impalas alarm calling only when necessary, I wonder if they weren't just playing or starting to rut with each other and it just got a bit out of hand and they started making alarm calls, because I don't see any tracks coming up here. Oh well, I guess it was totally worth checking. You've got to follow alarm calls when you hear them. I know Brent mentioned this morning, but I would say 75, no, maybe that's a bit extreme. 60% my predator sightings have come from following alarm calls, with tracking involved as well. But even more than that have come from alarm calls. Well, in that case, let us go back to the elephants, since there doesn't appear to be much walking through here. Except Connor, who has recently joined our tech team. At some point we'll get Connor on camera. I think he's been avoiding us. He ducked very quickly out of sight when he saw me. You didn't see Connor? He's like a mystery, like most of our tech department actually. Shadows. Try and avoid our camera as much as possible. James. Here we go, back to our elephants on quarantine. Elephants in the dusk. Beautiful. After that mad rush to follow up on the alarm calls. No sign of them, but the elephant's still here. There's the little mischief. That ears out posture. That's a really good point that's been raised by Tim. Now, most of us as humans experience our overwhelming emotion that we experience with elephants is that of peace and tranquility. And Tim has mentioned that one of the reasons he thinks they make him feel so calm is actually their shape. So the gentle contours, their roundness, yes ladies, your curves, are very relaxing. I completely agree with you, Tim. To me, what makes an elephant sighting like this so peaceful is, first of all, moments like this, where I've just heard one of their sub-frequency calls. Little baby at the back. I'm going to roll backwards a little bit. It's being so cute. Oh, are you coming? Oh goodness, here we go. All right, little one. You see the gentleness of the female there responding to its run, and actually I think she stopped it. I think that little calf wanted to come and chase us, and one of the females, probably mom, actually intervened there. That was so cute. I'm coming. Little naughty thing. Baby elephants don't need to eat as regularly or as constantly as the adults do, because they're still suckling. So they're getting a lot of the nutrition from the milk. Although they are eating solids by the time they're 6 months old, they're still feeding from their moms at the same time. And so it gives them plenty of time, particularly as it gets cooler in the afternoon, for playing and learning and exploring. There's that gentle rumble that I was talking about, Tim. You were saying about how calming they are. That they give off this but lower than I could ever make it. A contact call between all members of the herd, and it is so comforting to human beings. I don't know what it is. When they get, they have an angry rumble as well, which is far less comforting. But the gentle low brrr sound, I just love. It's also the sentience. I think the light is slowly disappearing, so let's stay with these elephants as soon as possible, or for as long as possible. And as I promised, after that, since you have been such a wonderful audience, we're going to have the treat of James appearing on your screens for the last few moments. But for now, let's stick with the Ellies. The light's going to vanish soon. Let's try and find a nice or a different view as they start to move through. So sweet. Hello, Ndlov. Ndlov, of course, Ndlovu being the local name in a lot of languages for elephant. And you, double trouble. Two little ones. Full of mischief. And the big girl putting herself between us and them. Although I have a strong suspicion, it is definitely the same herd. With the mischievous little males that come right up to the car and say hello. Look at them, kicking up all of the fresh green shoots on quarantine. And taking advantage of them. Oh, now where are you running to? I'm off. I'm going to go and see what other havoc I can cause. Deborah, I agree. Deborah, you're absolutely right. I also love the baby elephants bombing around like little maniacs. They are so cute and so playful. Look at these two. There's something phenomenally comfortable about watching an elephant walk away as well. Even just looking at them walking down a road is very relaxing. But Deborah, there's not much cuter than a baby elephant, and it's the intelligence and the learning that they're doing that makes them so fascinating to watch. It's that exuberance. Catherine and Hoagie all saying that elephants bring them a great sense of serenity and peace. Oh goodness, oh goodness. Oh, you're so brave until you get there, until you get to the young boy, and then you lose your motivation, little mischief. Oh, are you brave enough? Now, there we go. Now we've got the two of you. It is the same herd. Look at it imitating. Look at it imitating the older cousin. Oh, but not quite, not quite. But too scary, but too scary. Maybe I'm not as big as I thought I was. Up close, the vehicle looks a bit scarier. Oh. I can only describe it to you because it's something that you probably can't hear through the microphones. But the largest female is calling to the rest of her family in that gentle rumble I described, and that, to me, is where the feeling of something far more encompassing than myself starts to set in. And those impala, those cheeky impala are alarm calling again. And I wonder, I'm going to try and get hold of James, because he was in that area. Okay, James is with them. So James is with the impala that are alarm calling, which makes me feel a little bit better, because it goes so against my instinct to not follow alarm calls. But if James is there, I am slightly comforted. We're slowly losing light. We're coming right up to the end of our elephant sighting. But I was trying to describe this sense of connectedness is maybe pushing it a bit far. It might be getting a little bit too sappy. But there is an incredible overpowering emotion when you hear them talking to each other like that. And this awareness that you're dealing with not humans, but very sentient animals. Especially in a peaceful evening like this. Slowly just going about their business. You hear the hardy-daws calling off in the distance. And I hope this elephant herd decides to stick around for tomorrow's sunrise safari. They are such a herd full of characters. I don't know if it's because it's all of the little ones are young bulls, but they're cheeky and very brave. And it makes for highly entertaining antics. I don't believe it. There goes this little one again. Look at him. Look at him go. Run, 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 run. Run, 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 run. Oh. Oh. Intercept. Intercept. What are you up to? Are you full of... Oh, and I'm on a mission. And I'm gone again. Look at those little legs running furiously. Oh. Being chased by the older one. What are you doing, you crazy creature? I'm running. I'm running because I can, and I'm young, and I'm bored, and I want to. It's so beautiful. I'm sure that we provide a little bit of comic relief for the little ones as well. Something to remove the monotony of the day when the adults are being so boring and all they want to do is feed. And for the babies, when a vehicle comes around, it gives them something to perform for. And I promise you, I think that they perform for us at times. Yes, they play. Heard following the contact calls of that large female, and as I mentioned earlier, I suspected, not the one you're looking at, but the one that's been calling, I suspected that she was the matriarch from the beginning. And the reason that I said that is, first of all, she seems to govern the herd's movement. Then look at that. Look at all of those termites. It's like something out of a Disney movie. Elephants surrounded by sparkling termites. Africa providing the most stunning imagery. I'm not going to follow our elephant herd any further since it is getting dark, and generally they prefer not to have lights put on them. So we'll just watch them slowly move away. This is the same female that was a straggler before. The last time we saw this herd, when they came right up close to the vehicle. There's one female here with a prolapsed, not completely prolapsed uterus, but definitely a minor prolapse. I think this is her. It's hard to tell in the dark. The reason we don't put lights on them, as most of you would know, but for newish viewers joining us, you don't put lights on elephants. They're daytime animals. You can illuminate them. Oh, hold on, they're coming to us. That's interesting. Change direction. Are they going to come across towards us? Or they're going down to the dam for a drink. Banding together as they move. They got scattered in the clearing while they were feeding, but now as they move through the area, they're going to join up together. Hello, girls. Are you beautiful, huh? You're beautiful. Hello, girls. There you go, there's that rumble. A whole elephant herd moving past us, and this little one wants to feed and not being allowed to because it's drink time. This is such a special feeling. They're just dusky shapes in the dark. Now, Viam's lightened up the sighting for you, but for me, they're almost just dark shapes. You can hear them rumbling to each other. And Darlene, I completely agree. I wish we knew more about what they say to each other. There you go, little one's managing to have its snack. Hello, girls. All right. Thank you very much. You've got a beautiful family. Thank you, girl. Hello, beautiful. I'm not sure if you could hear that, but that was the female scratching her ankle against her leg. How awesome is that? That we were close enough to experience that sound. Wow.
They just walked around us.
They did just walk around us. They just walked. Oh, goodness. Sometimes the sound effects of an elephant herd are not just limited to the grumblings and the rumblings of their vocal cords, but sometimes the grumblings and the rumblings of their stomachs, including the expulsion of the digestive gases that are being produced as they consume their meals by elephants. Thank you very much for that. That was awesome. Darlene, completely agree with you that we have only scratched the surface of the extent to which elephants communicate with each other. I just want to make sure I don't reverse into one's personal space. I'm going backwards, Elise. Just be aware. Can't see anybody. Here we go.
I'm something on long eating down south.
I know that I promised you James, but unfortunately it seems as though he doesn't have any signal at the moment. So you shall be staying with me until that decides to sort itself out. Oh. Let's get the lights on. Oops. majestic jumped up to meet us. Sorry, I've just got to focus on getting... Oh, this is ridiculous. What's got caught here? Sorry, everybody. My spotlight. Goodness me, it's like I'm trying to disentangle my hair first thing in the morning. My spotlight is caught in a mess of cables. There's one. It's actually tangled in itself. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
How do you get that thing tangled up?
Here we go. Done it. I'm not sure, VM, how I managed to get that thing
Clean
tangled
all
up.
these cables today.
Yeah, no, VM cleaned it up so nicely in here, and already I've managed to tangle it up. But my argument is that it's like headphones. It doesn't matter how you put them away, when you find them again, they are going to be tangled up. There we go. And how's that beautiful sky? Just for a quick look. Unfortunately, my antenna in the way. Beautiful, nevertheless. Right, Amy, let's see if we can find you a bush baby. Darlene, one thing we haven't seen in quite a couple of days now is our much beloved wild dog packs. And Darlene's been reading reports about the idea that conservationists have had to change the name wild dog to painted dog or painted wolf. Essentially working on the assumption that the name... Whoa. Sorry, I've got to try and get Rusty into reverse. Look at this. This is why there was a bird feeding party here earlier. Wow, it's actually making a noise. I wonder if you can hear it. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment. How incredible is this sound? Sorry, Darlene. I'll be with you in a moment.
Amy?
Yes.
Can you radio James to come back like that?
If I can radio him too?
Come back like.
Yes, I can do. Now, he hasn't been answering his Game Dark channel, but Liam's had a wonderful idea of getting James to come and provide some backlight for us at this sighting. Perhaps Final Control, if you could get that message through to him, would be awesome. This is incredible. We're also being... I'm holding the spotlight, so I'm bearing the brunt of it, and I'm covered already in flying ants around us. This is incredible. So these are the reproductive, or termites capable of reproducing, and they've come out of the termite mound in order to search for a mate and to start their own colony. Now, most of them, the vast majority of these hundreds of thousands of termites, will not be successful, and they will form a very valuable food source for other animals and other creatures. But one or two of them will manage it. This is amazing. Just to give you a rough idea, James, as I said, is in this sighting. So we're going to have a look at the perspective from his vehicle and what this incredible sighting looks like.
Picture live. Jamie's audio.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of termites in the air. They're crawling all over me. this is an amazing sight. Just look at it from James's perspective, and what we're seeing in relation to our vehicle. Very soon, as it starts to get dark, the scorpions will be out and about. I'm going to try something. Want to try doing a virtual reality rig, Liam?
Yes.
Cool. Alright, let's give that a go.
There you can go. Just push the button on the side first. There we go.
There you go. You can see us turning on the virtual reality rig. Just look at all of these termites all around us. From right in front, all flying out across to the termite mound on our left. And this is one of the most incredible summer sightings that we could experience here. All exploding from this termite mound to the left that we're looking at now, and fluttering all about, the lights attracted to the lights of the vehicle. And hundreds and thousands of them down below us in the road itself. Look down, you'll be able to see them massed below the vehicle and fluttering about constantly. Just keep looking all around us, and you're going to see the most phenomenal things. This is so beautiful. They're just everywhere. They're completely surrounded us, and that hissing sound that the termites are making is just incredible. Welcome to a summer's evening in Africa after the rain. The flying ants, or the reproductive termites, setting out to establish their first new colonies. You might even see some of them landing on the vehicle. Look at that mad fluttering. Incredible. Keep your eyes peeled for the scorpions that might come out. I haven't seen any just yet, but they will be arriving at this road very soon to take advantage of all of the individuals on the ground. And it's like being engulfed in a living entity. It's almost like one giant organism. There's just so many of them around us. And it's like being an incredible experience on a beautiful African evening. Awesome. Back down onto the ground to have a look. A carpet of termites. Incredible. Just one little sample of what happens to us around at this time of year on a summer's evening. An incredible sighting and something to look at. Back on our vehicle once again. We're going to switch off the virtual reality rig now, I think, if you're happy with that, Liam. Termites crawling down my back. Oh, there's one in my shoe. This is such an incredible sighting. Oh, there's one on my leg. Here we go. This is what we're looking at. This one was under my straps of my shoe. And there he goes, off on his or her mission to find a mate. And what they're going to do is they're going to settle down, and they're actually going to start lifting up their abdomens and spraying pheromones into the air to help to attract a mate. And what I'm doing now with the spotlight is I'm just trying to see if there's any scorpions that have decided to come and join this. This is such an incredible experience. You can see a lot of them crawling around are not the reproductive termites, but there's soldier termites as well. The large ones with the powerful mandibles. And then there's the tiny little workers crawling about as well. This group that we're looking at now is mainly the reproductive algates of the termite group, or the termite mound. But it's not just them. Oh, smack to the face. And that, of course, is because I have a spotlight in my hand. And Valerie was wondering a bit about why it is that bugs are attracted to light. Look at that, there's another little one. Let me try and, sorry, that's a bit too overpowering in terms of light. There we go. A really fluffy fruit chafer, also been attracted to our lights. Oh, that's not the moon. And the answer to that, Valerie, is, as far as I understand it, for most of them, it's to do with their navigation. So the way in which they navigate. And a lot of them apparently navigate using the moon's light, or at least the impression of the moon. And I think the lights just confuse them, and that instinct that comes through to follow them is overpowering. That you find that around the world, insects fluttering and attracted to the light. And I'm sure that where James is sitting now, with his lights blazing as well, he's probably experiencing what we're experiencing, which is we're overrun by these reproductive termites. It's awesome. It's incredible. All fluttering. There's James, taking at least some of the termites away from us. Wow. Come on, scorpions. It's time for you to pay a visit. Sorry, I'm just checking along the road. They're going to be out soon. We're going to need to be exceptionally careful when walking about barefoot at the moment. I've said that I'm covered in termites. Jill in the UK was wondering, don't they bite or sting? And the answer to that is the soldiers definitely do. So if you look really carefully in this teeming mass, oh gosh, it's like playing Where's Waldo or Where's Wally, trying to point this out to you. But if you look really carefully in the seething mass, you'll see the larger termites without wings and with very large heads. And I'll have to leave that for you to spot yourselves. I can see a couple of them in the center of the frame. Those are soldier termites, and yes, they do bite. These flying ants, or the reproductive termites, I've never been bitten by one. I think if they do have jaws, they are not particularly powerful, so they're not going to inflict any damage on me. The flying driver ants, on the other hand, in my experience, do bite, quite horribly in fact, and the soldier termites are capable of inflicting, I wouldn't say that, it's not all that painful. These flying ants are exceptionally fragile. Most of them will lose their wings very quickly in this process. Look at them. Driven by an instinct of biology that is beyond our comprehension. Of course, not really looking to mate with others from the same colony, since they're genetically similar. They're on a mission to find a mate with a different genetic code. And there you go. Not paying attention to each other at all. And Computer Eyes was wondering, since they are from the same colony, is there a problem with inbreeding? And Computer Eyes, they're going to try and avoid reproducing with each other. They're looking to expand their range and to establish a colony with a distinct genetic line elsewhere. And that's where pheromones come into play in terms of guiding them. That's not to say that they will never mate with another termite from the same termite mound. but it is far less likely. They're going to go off in search of greener pastures, as it were, rather than essentially a sibling. But yes, you're absolutely right. They are all offspring of the exact same genetic line. So they'll go off and find a female. They will dig down into the ground and start to establish their own colony. Female will become the queen of her brand new start to life, and she will grow large and fat and start producing eggs in the same way queens are programmed to do. And it's so ticklish, it's quite hard to ignore when they're crawling up the back of your leg and in your hair and stuff. How are you doing there, Liam?
All right.
You're okay, you've managed to escape. Oh, one of them's managed to turn himself upside down. Oh, back up. And absolutely all the animals will be having a field day.
What is that?
That I'm not actually entirely sure, to be completely honest. Are you looking at these little guys? I really don't know. A bug, I'm afraid. I honestly don't know. Too many bugs, too many insects out here to memorize them all. Oh my goodness, there's some of them are crawling up the back of my leg. One of them's on my ankle and it's really ticklish. Come here. Oh, down it goes. Marilyn, you had a question for me, but because there's a flying ant trying to crawl up my shorts, it's completely gone out of my mind. Sorry. As I was opening my mouth to answer you. This is awesome. Yes, that is it. Marilyn, you were wondering about nightjars eating termites. Absolutely, they are going to. Everything out here eats termites. Leopards eat termites. Hyenas will eat the termites. Birds of prey will eat the termites, and nightjars will definitely eat the termites. In fact, I'm quite surprised. That's really ticklish. That's really ticklish. That's an invasion of privacy and personal space. And out. Out. I think it's time to go. I'm being overwhelmed. I'm very glad that they don't bite or sting or anything like that. Oh goodness, no, you're still stuck in there, you silly creature. Ooh, to the face. I think it's time to go. I don't know how you all feel. Oh no, now the car won't start. No, we're trapped. We're trapped. Oh, there we go. Woo. Relief. Let's escape this almost Hitchcock-like situation, like the movie The Birds, except with termites. Overwhelmed and overrun by them. No, you see, this is what I'm talking about. My shorts are not inappropriate. You will not find what you are looking for. There you go. Off you go. You get very used to bugs working out here. It's something that becomes second nature. And look at that, it's like moon. Oh. Ah, they're everywhere. Beautiful half moon. A waxing half moon, as far as I know. In other words, we're going towards full moon rather than towards new moon. You can see the rings that form around it as a result of moisture or water vapor in the air. And all I can hear now is 10 million termites fluttering in the different crevices of the vehicle. Ooh, one to the face. Absolutely incredible view. Really special evening. Between the elephants and the termites. that's a really interesting question that's come from Raisa, who is a long-term viewer of this show and has been observing the comings and the goings of our various sightings. She's looking at the reproductive termites and asking a very salient, or maybe a very salient point, which is, how long does it take for those termites that we're watching with the wings to grow those wings and to fully develop, since they seem to come out straight after the rains. They always do come out straight after the rains. So she was wondering, do they sit and wait fully formed for the rains to come, or how does that work? And Raisa, to be 100% honest, I think that they have some kind of genetic coding that kicks in with the rains, that they then start to grow the wings from there, because they are incredibly fragile, and I can't see them sitting with those wings safely attached, just waiting for the rains. But Raisa, I'm honestly not terribly sure. I don't know how the whole process plays itself out within those mysteries of the termite mound. But what I will do, Raisa, is I will try and find that out for you. I will double check with some of the other guides, the other presenters, and see if they know exactly how that process plays itself out. Now that you ask it, it seems like such an obvious question to have asked. And yet it's something that has never occurred to me up until you've raised that point. And it's a really, really good point. It is a mystery to me, Raisa. I'll have to try and find out for you. Andrina said that I'm not just taking one for the team, I'm taking thousands for the team. Hundreds probably, or maybe about 100 odd termites have collided with various parts of my head or legs or feet or knees or shirt. Vim seems to be relatively unscathed at the back there.
All the lights are on you.
Yeah, all the lights are on me, so that's where they come in from. And I think actually poor old James probably had it even worse, because he was just serving as a different ow. That was not a termite, that was a dung beetle. That had to have been a dung beetle. Smack to the face. Now, before we come to the end of our show, Darlene's comment, we got so distracted by the termites that I never finished it. Darlene, there's a very concerted effort to rename wild dogs painted dogs. And it is, to me, it's a very good point. And it's not so much the word wild, in my opinion, that does them damage. It's the word dog. By saying that they're dogs, it automatically makes them some kind of feral, domestic, and common creature that that farmers in particular don't relate to. So by relabeling them a painted wolf or a painted dog sounds so different to wild dog. So I personally think it's a really nice idea. I think that an animal as beautiful as that could earn a name like painted wolf. I think painted wolf is stunning, and they are essentially the wolves of the bushveld. That is what they're adapted to do. Just to jump back to that subject quickly. So yes, what you read is absolutely the case. I personally think it is a really nice option, and I hope to see it going through in future. And maybe, just maybe, that combined with all manner of educational efforts will be enough to slowly start to turn the tide of ignorant opinion about wild dogs in favor of protecting them. We draw to the close of what was initially a very quiet sunset safari, but you can't have all of the animals all of the time in the wild out here. It is just the way that things work. A big thank you to Vian for his fantastic camera work, and he is a truly, truly gifted cameraman, as well as to the lovely ladies in Final Control who give us all our directions, Jerry and Louise, and most of all, a big thank you to all of you for your questions, comments, and for sticking by us with all of the technical difficulties. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and don't forget to join us for the Sunrise Safari. Cheers, guys.